The royal wedding of 1981 seized the imagination of the whole world.
She was what the royal family were looking for. She was the archetypal virgin.
With the birth of Prince William, the future of the monarchy seemed secure.
Does Prince William have a favourite toy?
He loves his koala bear he's got.
But behind the scenes, Princess Diana was finding public life a strain.
She started to suffer from bulimia nervosa, this eating disorder.
Prince Charles became jealous of her immense popularity. And the shadow of his former mistress, Camilla Parker Bowles, loomed large. Although the public had no idea, by the time Prince Harry was born in 1984, Diana felt the royal marriage was over in all but name.
And they drove away to Kensington Palace to start life quietly and alone as a newly enlarged family.
Today on the Diana Years, we revisit the next chapter in Diana's life, through rarely seen archive footage, and through many of her own personal music favourites of the time. In April 1985, Prince Charles and Princess Diana made an official visit to Italy. It was unusually long for a foreign tour. It lasted 17 days and included many of Italy's most famous sites.
You saw me standing by the wall.
As she had done on previous foreign visits, Princess Diana pulled in huge crowds and captivated them with her charm. But this only intensified Prince Charles's feelings of jealousy.
They went to a private lunch on an island on Lake Maggiore, the appropriately named Isola Bella.
But what is remarkable about the royal couple is not perhaps that the marriage turned out to be unhappy for them both, but that they soldiered on, enduring their private difficulties for an extraordinarily long time. Prince Charles and Princess Diana did not in fact separate for nearly a decade after their marriage had failed.
Prince Charles obviously was trained to go about his duties as though nothing was wrong. I mean, that's part of his background, his upbringing. And Diana had, after all, also an aristocratic, dutiful background and a certain amount of pride, and I think that they didn't want to show what was wrong. I gather in private it was not very good, and there'll be screaming rows and chucking things and all that. But they did get on.
Next to an even earlier building, the Pantheon, which the Emperor Hadrian was already restoring in AD 120.
There were times when I really wasn't sure if she was going to be able to do it. And over again, I was amazed at how she was able to pull herself together, put on the public mask.
Inevitably, a walkabout followed. For these two, that is the price of their tourism.
They did conceal the big problems in the marriage. I remember Vic Chapman was their press secretary at the time, and he was really, he'd been an ex-Canadian big guy, football player, and he was very, said, James, there's not a problem. The only problem is people like you. It's, okay, fine, Vic. But they more or less lied.
But the visit to the Vatican went ahead in some splendor as the slow-paced royal procession made its way to the Pope's study.
And they were doing the double act. They'd learnt the script, so they'd thrown the script away, and they were doing it, and everybody thought, you know, great couple. They're doing all the right things. They're schmoozing and pumping the right flesh. But things certainly had deteriorated between the two of them, and they weren't getting any better. But they were still putting on a brave face in public because they knew they had a public duty, and they knew that the public were watching them through the eyes of the media.
And we thought you might like the bead, the venerable bead, ecclesiastical history of England.
Yes.
Which you probably know very well already.
A great personality of the common church, of the universal church. We are venerating him still.
Tonight, on board Britannia, both the Prince and Princess talked of their impressions of the 2.5-week tour of Italy.
They made us feel so much at home, and it's the most beautiful place.
I think Florence has been particularly impressive. You've got something to say.
Mio marito ed io siamo molto felici di essere qui. Work that out.
Salute.
Charles and Diana kept up appearances for the sake of the monarchy, of course, but also for their children. Whatever their private differences, Charles and Diana were always loving and devoted parents. But given her rejection by Prince Charles, it was important now for Princess Diana to secure her position. And as Britannia sailed away, she also craved public approval to compensate for her private loneliness. One way to shore up her position, and also gain praise, was to promote British fashion. She had long excited interest in what she wore. Now she was going to show that as Britain's leading fashion icon, she could take on Hollywood and beat it at its own game.
We did a ball, and the princess wanted to be in a really razzle-dazzle dress, and I designed this sort of pleated lame dress with huge, enormous, great shoulders. Oh, and Joan Collins, of course, was there.
Well, my memories are, one of them is that I had the worst hairstyle ever. I was knocked out by the way she looked. She was very, very tall, very blonde, very piercing, beautiful blue eyes. And of course, I was doing this TV show called Dynasty, and we used to copy her clothes, because I had to wear endless outfits, and we used to see pictures of her in Hello or in the Daily Mail, and I'd say, this is a good outfit, this would be good for the scene that we have to do next week.
She got labelled the next day as Dynasty Di. I mean, the Queen of Hollywood meets the Princess of Wales.
Despite any appearance to the contrary, though, Princess Diana actually took a business-like approach to how she dressed, and did not indulge in fashion for its own sake, or purely for her own pleasure.
She wasn't a shopaholic. She would be very, very sort of pragmatic about it, because she had kind of clothing allowance from the Ministry of this and the Ministry of that, and she had her own personal allowance. So if she had, for instance, to go to Saudi Arabia and needed half a dozen dresses, then the tab for those dresses would be picked up by somebody else. They wouldn't be picked up necessarily by her. So she'd, first of all, she'd come, look at the collection and say, well, that will do for that, that for that, that for that, that for that. And then it would be a question of, I need half a dozen dresses for this visit and that, and they have to be down to here, long sleeve, and they have to be up to here, which is not really my style, you know. So sometimes it was quite business-like, you know, the business of choosing things for her and choosing wardrobes. She was a very, very beautiful woman, and she had a very good figure, and she had the height, so it'd be great, you know, it was always good to sort of emphasize her, because she didn't have the smallest waist. She was a bit straight. She's a bit... Because people have this image of Diana as being perfect, but I mean, she wasn't perfect. She wasn't classically beautiful, you know, I mean, if you wanted to really pull her face to bits, you could. But, you know, all in all, you know, taking all the package together, she was a stunner.